Music journalist Michael Azerrad once recounted that Alex Lifeson expressed to fellow musicians his frustration with Kurt Cobain, whom he saw as embodying the worst of rock's anti-intellectual trend. Number 1. Kurt Cobain. According to Lifeson, Cobain had glorified musical ineptitude, persuading a generation that ignorance of one's instrument was synonymous with authenticity. This encapsulated the philosophical divide between the two. Lifeson believed every musician should pursue mastery and technical excellence, while Cobain prioritized raw expression over skill. In Cobain's mind, intricate musicianship could create a barrier between the performer and the audience. Lifeson, however, considered this attitude harmful, as it discouraged effort and suggested that dedication and practice were somehow inauthentic. Though they never clashed publicly, insiders recall a notable early 1990s award ceremony where grunge overtook progressive rock. Lifeson reportedly grew frustrated as critics praised simplicity as genius, feeling that years of rigorous work were being overlooked. Witnesses say he muttered under his breath, "They're celebrating the death of musical ambition and calling it authenticity." To Lifeson, Nirvana's ascendancy signaled more than a stylistic shift. It represented a cultural turn from artistry toward purposeless rebellion. Cobain, in Lifeson's eyes, had transformed music into what he described as willful ignorance dressed up as integrity. Number 2. The Edge. The Edge from U2 became another source of Lifeson's ire. At first glance, the two shared traits as innovators who shaped their band's sound from the ground up. Yet Lifeson saw a profound difference in approach. While he dedicated decades to honing scales, chords, and phrasing, the Edge leaned heavily on effects, delay, echo, reverb, and layered textures, rather than technical precision. Fans found his sound otherworldly and iconic, but Lifeson dismissed it as illusion. An editor from Guitar Player magazine recalled Lifeson telling session musicians that the Edge hid behind pedals instead of learning how to truly play. For Lifeson, genuine innovation arose from technique and composition, not the quantity of pedals chained together. Technology, he argued, was a tool, not a substitute for skill. Creativity was welcome, but every note had to come from the hands, not a device. Their disagreement reportedly became visible during a prominent guitar clinic when the Edge showcased his effects setup. Lifeson quietly remarked to a colleague, "This is what happens when sound design is mistaken for musicianship." To Lifeson, modern players were abandoning the art of playing in favor of programming. He described it as button pushing for those unwilling to practice scales, a form of decay. In his eyes, the Edge had turned music into an engineering exercise, whereas true guitar work required hands-on expression, emotion conveyed through touch. Number 3. Malcolm Young. Malcolm Young of AC/DC, whose influence clashed with Lifeson on a philosophical level. Lifeson represented musical sophistication, shifting time signatures, chord variations, and intricate arrangements. Young, on the other hand, embodied minimalism, raw rhythm, and straightforward power. To Young, rock was about groove and feel, his simple riffs leaving an unforgettable mark. Lifeson, however, interpreted this simplicity as stagnation. Rock journalist Murray Engelhart reported that Lifeson told peers, "Malcolm has made limitation into a religion. He's proud of playing the same 3 chords for decades, when music should be about exploration and growth." It was a matter of principle, not personal dislike. While AC/DC adhered to their formula, Lifeson experimented with jazz, classical harmonies, and layered arrangements. During a 1980s Industry Awards event celebrating AC/DC's dedication to their raw sound, Lifeson reportedly remarked to his manager, "They're celebrating musical laziness and calling it purity." In his eyes, true rock should break barriers rather than stay confined within them. Malcolm symbolized comfort and resistance to evolution. Lifeson's frustration stemmed from the message this sent, that effort and innovation didn't matter if the formula sold records. For him, the guitar was about continual progress. Music wasn't static, it was ever-changing. Outsiders might have read his stance as arrogance, but among musicians, it reflected passion, a relentless drive for perfection. Lifeson didn't despise the players personally. He rejected what they represented: complacency, comfort, and a refusal to embrace musical discipline. Every note carried meaning, every progression told story, and each song was a chance to create something new. Witnessing this ethos replaced by good enough, rock felt to him like artistry being diluted for mass appeal. Lifeson's guiding principle was that music must evolve, that artists must keep learning, and that passion without purpose amounted to noise. For him, guitar playing was about respect for the craft, the audience, and the instrument itself. When looking at Cobain, The Edge, or Malcolm Young, Lifeson mourned not just trends, but the loss of ambition in rock. For him, being a guitarist meant pushing forward, not merely keeping pace. Number 4, Johnny Ramone. Johnny Ramone, whose confrontations with Lifeson illustrated the tension between discipline and rebellion. This wasn't about ego, it was ideological. When punk rock erupted in the mid-1970s, the Ramones' raw, stripped-down style rejected the intricacies of progressive rock. While Lifeson and Rush explored complex compositions, unusual time signatures, and classical elements, the Ramones relied on three-chord anthems, no solos, and sheer energy. Punk historian Lex McNeil recounted Lifeson telling Canadian journalists that Johnny Ramone had transformed incompetence into a movement. Lifeson, devoted to mastery and growth, viewed this as a repudiation of skill. The Ramones celebrated simplicity as a badge of honor, a message that thrilled fans but pained Lifeson. As he integrated classical training, jazz influences, and layered arrangements, Ramone gained acclaim for tearing down complexity, proving that mastery wasn't necessary to leave a mark on rock. Their ideological clash peaked at a 1977 New York industry conference, where Lifeson made a pointed remark about musicians who confuse rebellion with incompetence. When Ramone was defended as the true embodiment of rock freedom, Lifeson left angry. At its core, their feud was philosophical. Ramone glorified rawness over refinement, whereas Lifeson maintained that discipline and study elevated artistry. To him, punk wasn't progress, it was willful regression. Number 5. Slash, whose feud defined late 1980s guitar culture. He represented blues-based rock tradition, whereas Lifeson pushed progressive innovation. Slash's raw sound dominated MTV, record charts, and bedroom posters across the globe. Fans hailed him as a revival of classic rock, but Lifeson saw repetition and nostalgia. Guns N' Roses' debut, Appetite for Destruction, was a seismic moment, yet Lifeson reportedly remarked to session musicians, "Slash is playing the same blues licks that were tired 20 years ago, and everyone calls him innovative." Real evolution is moving forward, not retreating into classic rock museum pieces. Lifeson had spent decades crafting a new musical language, blending experimentation, odd time signatures, jazz influences, and sonic storytelling. Slash, conversely, valued feel over theory, famously stating, "If it feels good, it's right. I don't need theory to tell me that." Lifeson saw this as a symptom of a larger issue. Countless guitarists copied Slash, reproducing the same pentatonic solos and vintage tones. To him, this was not growth, it was looping nostalgia. He reportedly labeled Slash's style blues rock karaoke. Technically accurate, but artistically stagnant. Their feud was philosophical, not personal, centering on whether music should honor the past or create the future. For Lifeson, the answer was progress, not comfort. Number 6. Angus Young, AC/DC's electrifying schoolboy, who Lifeson believed embodied rock's anti-intellectual decline. Their tension stretched back to the 1970s, as Rush redefined progressive rock, while AC/DC perfected stripped-down, high-voltage riffing. Rock journalist Clinton Walker recalled Lifeson saying, "Angus has turned musical limitation into a bloody circus act. He's made ignorance entertaining, and convinced audiences that refusing to grow as a musician is somehow more authentic than developing your craft." While Rush pushed technical boundaries, AC/DC kept it raw and simple. Fans adored it, but Lifeson saw it as a mockery. Angus openly dismissed progressive rock, joking that prog music was for overthinkers. Insiders say this was the final straw, representing for Lifeson the ultimate corruption of rock. Stagnation celebrated as spectacle. Over time, Lifeson moderated his stance, acknowledging that not every song needed complex time signatures to be good. Yet the philosophical clash between Angus' raw simplicity and Lifeson's intricate approach remains one of rock's most striking divides. Ultimately, the six guitarists who pushed Lifeson's progressive ideals to the edge weren't simply rivals over solos or riffs. They represented conflicting worldviews: effort versus ease, mastery versus rebellion, complexity versus simplicity. Lifeson's story is compelling not as a mere catalog of feuds, but as a reflection of the ongoing struggle over rock soul. It raises the question, was Lifeson a purist clinging to complexity, or one of the last champions of artistry in an era that increasingly celebrated simplicity? His battles highlight that music is never just about notes. It's about values, innovation, and the constant tension between challenge and comfort. Alex Lifeson wasn't just arguing over guitar skills. He was fighting for the idea that music should evolve, that effort and creativity matter, and that true artistry comes from discipline as well as emotion. These feuds aren't about personal grudges. They're about the soul of rock itself, and why some musicians push boundaries while others stay comfortable in simplicity. If you love deep dives into the rivalries that shaped music history, hit that like button and subscribe for more.